And then, like, especially wherever you are on the journey to these doing hard things, at first it's just do something, right? Just start doing something. And then now, once you get more comfortable, we can amp it up and dial it up.
Welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast. I have a very special guest in store for you today. My dear friend who I've known for a couple of years now, and I've always admired his mindset, his tenacity, and I'm excited to have this conversation today on the podcast. Welcome, Akshay, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Honor to be here.
Yeah, so Akshay, will you kick us off with what has led you to this journey that you're on today? Because if you guys don't know much about Akshay Nanavati, as I would say it.
Exactly.
And he pronounced it Akshay. How did you say it?
Nanavati. I said Nanavati. Americanized.
I said we both have the Americanized version we say our name and the Indian version.
And the Indian version.
But will you dive into what led you to the big things you do in the world right now? And and if you don't know who he is, he recently went on this expedition across Antarctica. I was going to say Africa, across Antarctica, pulling a sled that weighed what, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds,
420 pounds initially.
420 pounds. Doing really big things that are big challenges. And I'm just excited to have this conversation today. So kick us off with what led you to do what you do now.
Sure. My path to playing on these edges and really pushing the frontiers of the human potential began when I joined the Marines. I had moved from India, where I was born, moved to Singapore, came to the US at about 13. Soon after that, got heavily into drugs, into alcohol, very self-destructive, lost 2 friends to addiction, until I saw the movie Black Hawk Down, and that set the stage. It was the trigger for changing my entire life. After watching that, almost overnight, stopped doing drugs, decided to join the military. It took me a year and a half to get into the Marines because I have flat feet, scoliosis, a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in boot camp, and obviously transcended all of that, survived, and that laid the foundation for everything I am today. It taught me the beauty of going to war with the self, of suffering not just for your highest and greatest self, to find something within the human spirit to transcend our struggles, but to do it for something greater. In the Marines, it was about my men and my mission, to suffer for something bigger. So from there, I got into every outdoor sport you can think of: rock climbing, mountain climbing, cave diving, skydiving, like everything, every fear I had, because I used to be scared of all of these things. So I wanted to systematically confront my fears, which I did. And then in 2007, I was deployed to Iraq as an infantry Marine, where one of my jobs out there was to walk in front of our convoys looking for bombs before they could be used to kill me and my fellow Marines. A dangerous job, dangerous life experience, but one that once again pushed me and challenged me and allowed me to open up new doors to access within, to transcend that suffering. Came back from the war, struggled with PTSD, struggled with drinking heavily. One morning after 5 days of binge drinking, was on the verge of taking my own life. And that was the next moment that transformed me once again. From there, climbed out of the abyss, started delving deep into neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality. And that laid the foundation for everything I am today, my brand, my book that I wrote called Fearvana. And the fundamental ethos of everything I do, and for myself and others, is to help navigate human suffering. It's the kind of the fundamental challenge in the human experience that philosophers and psychologists have been trying to answer that problem since the beginning of time. And how do we use our suffering? How do we turn it into something beautiful, into nirvana, right? And that's what Fearvana is about. And my own expression of that became exploring the edge of suffering and struggle in the most extreme ways, to bring the wisdom back. Because if you want to help people battle the darkness, you have to know the darkness yourself. You know this in your own business, right? Whatever we do, the greater wisdom we have in the arena, the more we can help others do it. So from spending 17 days in darkness to 100 days alone in the polar regions, to working with survivors of sex trafficking, former child soldiers, playing on these very extreme edges, both within and without, to gain a deeper understanding of the human soul and how we move through struggle.
You know, that was a lot.
This is through a lot. Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. And it's interesting that, you know, so many people go through the Army or through the Marines and have these different experiences. But I wouldn't imagine that all that many take all of that and pull it into such a spiritual sense. As you were speaking, I thought, wow, you were really built differently, so that when you had that experience, the first thing you thought was, wow, this is humanity's main problem. How
Yeah.
am I going to figure out how to transcend it? And if I do, when I do, as I do, how do
Yeah.
I share this with others to show them, hey, there's a different way of thinking, a different way of being?
Yeah.
And I remember when I heard you speak at a mastermind conference we both attend a few years ago, I raised my hand, and the first question I asked was, it sounds like you create a lot of suffering in your life to go and have these experiences and learnings. But in my piece of the health world, part of what we teach is don't drive your system into overdrive all the time. Don't drive yourself crazy. Don't create high cortisol. Don't create such high stress. So it's interesting that you put yourself into such challenging situations. I've never met anyone quite like it who's like, let me go pick the hardest thing on earth that
Hmm.
scares the absolute crap out of me and go do it. So where do you find that within you to do that?
I think it built up over time. I certainly wasn't like this overnight. And this would be my recommendation for others too is, the edge is wherever it looks like for each of us, the more you expand it, the more you play on the frontiers, the wider it gets. So for me, first I was literally scared when I was a kid. I was scared of a Ferris wheel, let alone roller coasters. Even Ferris wheels scared me. So I went from that to now this extreme. But
Right.
that got cultivated over time, and that's the value when you go further out of the edge. And the edge is not just physical, it's mental. It's pushing yourself in relationship, in your business. I mean, it's the same thing in the business realm, right? You've made your first six figures. Now what? You want to go a little deeper, you want to go a little further, right? So you're playing on new edges. That's the point. Every time you expand it, it's not to now get comfortable, it's now to go play on the next one. And the next one doesn't just mean going deeper into the edge of, let's say in my case, suffering. Like, as much as I push the body and into these very extreme edges, into the depths of suffering and struggle and solitude, I also play on the edge of comfort. Like, when my wife will tell you, when I'm not up in Antarctica, I like to be extremely comfortable at home. But
Yeah.
that's the dynamic. That's what makes life so much more flavorful. Like, you can't have a summit without a valley. You go to take as simple as take a hot shower after doing a cold bath and tell me how much more valuable that hot shower is, right? You
Yeah.
after If you haven't eaten in a day and then you eat, everything becomes more flavorful. So contrast is what gives life its flavor. You can't know happiness without sadness. And that's the whole point, is play on the edges to amplify the experience of life. So it's not just a spiritual growth that comes from that. It's also an amplification of the intensity of this human experience, what Joseph Campbell called the rapture of being alive. And I think all of us want to experience more awe, want to feel more life. And you do that by playing on whatever your edges are.
I love that phrase you said, amplification of
Hmm.
life. Uh, I've been thinking a lot about how much do we seek pleasure in all areas of our life, and how is that seeking and designing of our life around pleasure taking away from so much more?
Yeah.
Because I'm really lucky. I'm surrounded by really great people, my husband, my best friend, my sister, all these people who are very adventurous.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm definitely the not adventurous one. I'm the introvert. I like
Mm.
life to be really comfortable, and I know how to design a life to be so comfortable and beautiful. Everyone wants to come over and have tea and just hang out at my place all the time because I know how to make it really
Yeah.
nice. And one year in my business, it was a few years ago, everything was really stagnant. Everything
Mm.
was the same. We were at the
Mm.
same revenue level for 5 years. Nothing was moving. And I was like, something has to change. And they say
Mm.
in business, something has to change, and it's the business is not moving. It's the leader who needs
Mm.
to change.
Yeah.
And so I'd call that year my year of yes. And that year, I did everything I could find that scared the crap out of me.
Mm.
Kind of like your 101 level. I
Mm.
did roller coasters. I
That's
petted like a
awesome.
stingray. Like everything we went
That's
to, I could
awesome.
find, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Anything I could jump off of, or that year I flew a plane. You can fly a plane on Groupon, by the way. You can just go on
Oh, that's
Groupon
super
and
cool.
co-pilot a plane with a person. I did
Yeah.
jet packing where you're 30, 40, 50 feet above the ocean on a jetpacker. And I'm scared of the ocean. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But it was such a growth year because I think as you do the things that scare the absolute shit out of you, all of a sudden you're like, that wasn't that bad. That
Yeah.
was fun. That
Yeah.
was fine. You're
Yeah.
alive. You're good. Why
Yeah.
do you make such a big deal out of everything? And then you're living this much smaller life as opposed to this really expansive life. And
Exactly.
so how do you guide people who are still in that 101 level, who who are always reaching for pleasure and comfort as opposed to amplifying and opening up that edge in their life.
Yeah. I think first step is sort of normalizing it. We're very wired to seek out comfort. I mean, even if you look at it evolutionary speaking, we lived in a world where comfort was not the norm. There was threats, there was danger, so we're wired to seek out comfort as a relief from constant danger. Now we live in a world that comfort is the norm. But the reality is that you're going to suffer one way or another. Everybody listening to this knows this. Even if you try to avoid it, it will come your way. And eventually, you're going to see, as you did, that as we all did, as I've seen myself, that if you avoid it, the suffering that hits is far worse than the suffering that you're going to deal with from, in your case, like pushing into your fears, flying the plane, petting the stingray, right? Like you could have avoided all that and been in this world you created, and you're eventually going to call it what you want, like the existential dread of the human condition, the what Henry David Thoreau called quiet desperation, right? There's that gnawing ache that a lot of us can relate to. So first, okay, it's normal and understandable to seek out comfort. So without sort of beating yourself up about it, let's accept that there's a reason we all do it. Comfort is
Mm.
inherently more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So that's the nature of it. Now
Yeah.
it's kind of exactly what you did, guiding people. All right, let's push one edge. Start somewhere, whatever it may be. It's about petting that stingray, flying, or jumping out of a plane, or walking up to that man or woman in a bar that you're scared to do, right? Whatever the thing is, let's just step into a little bit. And because as you yourself experienced, when you get a little taste of it, you now see, oh, like I pushed into it. And I didn't die. Like I was fine. And then you feel that excitement. You feel, I mean, this you feel that what one neuroscientist called dishabituation, because our brain just normalizes what is. It's the same thing. Like if I look at that same sunrise outside my door every day, it loses a bit of its flavor. But when you now see something else, the flavor amplifies. And that's just normal because the brain is wired to look for safety. So when everything feels safe in prediction, we don't have to worry. Nothing's unpredictable, right? So it feels safe. It normalizes. The brain doesn't register something as something to kind of, amp up the intensity a little bit. But when we dishabituate, when we do something outside the norm, when we break that pattern, it amps it up. And that means now more excitement, more flavor, right? And so I would like encourage people to go find something in your own expression of that. And
Mm.
then, like, especially wherever you are on the journey to these doing hard things, at first it's just do something, right? Just start doing something. And then now, once you get more comfortable, we can amp it up and dial it up. We can come up with these extreme challenges, like it doesn't have to be in Antarctica, but something like that, like go run your first marathon. Now it's something not just on a one time basis, but something we're training for. Because now you have this target to aim for that pushes you way beyond, right? It can be in a business. It can be, okay, let me write my first book. You also know the challenges of that, right? You
Yeah.
know what it's like to endure. So whatever it may be, physical or mental or thing, let's do something that now it requires a little bit more out of you. And then on that process, we can now start building even the nuances of within your challenge. What is the right hard things? Like what I mean by that is I'm someone who thrives on the edge of doing the hard, like suffering, struggle, to the point that I had to realize that it's easier for me to get on the stair climber for 2 hours, 3 hours than it is to do 15 minutes of stretching. I'll very easily procrastinate on that, you know? And so my right hard thing wasn't actually training. I have no problem doing that. I'm very good at that. It's actually doing the recovery work, you know, whether that be stretching, the yoga, the compression boots, all those kind of things that I would very easily procrastinate on. So as you develop the muscle, you can then start looking at where are there little things to tweak. The little details matter more and more the further you are along the path of mastery, whatever that craft may be.
You know, you said, what are the right hard things? And I think that's so profound because oftentimes when we're on social media, for example, in my world, I go to longevity conferences, health and wellness
Yeah.
conferences, integrative conferences, which are more my people, biohacking conferences. And when
Yeah.
I go to like the biohacking conferences, even the longevity ones, sometimes my friends are like, you haven't cold plunged? Bring your bathing suit tomorrow. We're going to go. And I'm always like, I am not coming near you tomorrow. And I am not bringing a bathing suit to the middle of a conference hall for
Yeah.
me to get in a cold plunge. Like,
Yeah.
certainly this won't be the experience that drives that. If
Yeah.
I'm going to do that, it'll be in a retreat setting, in a Wim Hof setting, like
Yeah.
with the exact right mindset.
Yeah.
But my whole being this whole time, I'm a Pitta fire girl in Ayurveda
Yeah.
with a lot of Vata imbalances, like most of the women I know. So I'm like, I'm not getting in something cold. Like my system doesn't
Yeah.
want that thing.
Yeah.
But what my system does want in 2025 is way more honoring of self, because to
Mm.
run and grow a company, to manage team, my teenagers, to go through perimenopause and then launch a Hay House book, my whole system is like, what the F? Like, who are
Yeah.
you? What are you doing over there? You're
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so I've really been paying attention to what is the right hard thing for me
Mm.
in certain years.
Yeah.
In
And
certain
it's
years,
gonna
you
shift,
can just
exactly.
go at it and try lots of scary, hard things. And in some years, it's like, actually, do you need to go deeper in your relationships? Because the relationships are what hold you through years like this. Or
Absolutely.
do you need to go deeper into home life? Have you
Yeah.
neglected things that really mattered? And I
Yeah.
know that you're co-authoring a book with your wife on
Yeah.
relationships. And so we
Hmm.
have talked somewhat of sometimes you go so big at the big hard things, but you're leaving behind the people or the relationships that matter to you
Hmm.
most. And
Hmm.
so how do you kind of navigate choosing the right hard thing? Because oftentimes with all the messages that we're sold on social
Hmm.
media,
Hmm.
I'm sold messages like work hard, play hard, work all weekend and work all night. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not winning, you should do these 18 things. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, well, I've been an entrepreneur for over 15 years. So
Yeah.
I already
Yeah.
know the 18 ways that don't work. I'm
Yeah.
going to stay real focused on the few that I know will work for me. So how do
Yeah.
you navigate that?
Great question. One of my core mantras over the years has become stretch and reflect. And the
Mm,
reflect part is become hugely important. There was a time in my life I would just bounce from hard thing to hard thing to hard thing, not a pause to reflect. And it's that reflection phase that allows you to figure out what is it for you. You made a great point that the right hard thing is not static. It's dynamic. It's going to change. Like as a very concrete example, after coming back from the war, I went and spent a month doing a ski crossing of Greenland, dragging a 190-pound sled for 350 miles across the ice cap. So, from the outside, it looks very similar to what I did in Antarctica, dragging a heavy sled through white expanse. But when I did it back then, I was just doing it to escape. I wanted
mm,
to go back to an intense environment where I didn't have to deal with the mundane so I could run away from my demons from the war. I came back from Greenland and I started drinking heavily. The demons rose back up. Back then, my hard thing was actually going deeper within, to your point. That was what I needed to do, but I was running away. And I didn't pause. I didn't think about it. I just where can I go find that next intensity to bring me
mm,
some degree of peace? Less than a year ago, I went to Antarctica. Same thing from the external world, right? Like looks the same, but very different level of consciousness that had me go drive. I wasn't running away, I was running toward. It was a seeking, it was a search, it was a spiritual depth that I was looking for. So the point of that is to say you can do the same thing at different periods of time, but they're not the right versus the wrong hard. And this demands a ruthless self honesty that you are going to have to confront. I mean, you and I have seen this. We've seen people who have entrepreneurs who have millions of dollars, terrible family life, terrible fitness, or even people who are extremely fit, but mental health is a mess. And it's like some part of you knows it, but you're not willing to confront it.
yeah.
And you can one, just go within, do ruthless self honesty, get outside help, coaches. I work with clients as well who guide them to say that, okay, what is this thing for me at this moment in time? But nobody else ultimately can do the inner work for you. And so a way to look at it too, to make that practical for somebody listening is look at where in your life there is friction and you can go play on the other edge of it. So you can say, let's say, okay, entrepreneur listening to this, my business is growing but my family life is a mess. And look, I'm not here to tell you to do how to live your life. You can choose and to say that I want to do the business at the cost of everything else. And if that's a
Right.
choice, what I want for people is to make that choice consciously. That's the
Mm,
key. If you're choosing it consciously, you do you. I'm no one to judge, right? But I don't think most people would make that choice consciously if they pause to really ask the question. I know you and me wouldn't, right? We
yeah.
wouldn't do it at the cost, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. That's not the point either. It's not to say you can't build an empire and have family. Like you can do both, but the point is you can do it in a way that you're not sacrificing one or the other, right? So when you look at where the points of friction are, you can start playing on the other edge. And this also applies in the micro way. Like there was many years ago, I was out running and I saw a sign that said 5K fun run. And I
Mm,
had visceral disgust at the idea of a fun run. Like you don't run for fun. Every run should be suffering, and that
yeah.
was a very unhealthy way to live. It hit me then that like, okay, why am I thinking this? Anytime there's a thought that it should be either this or that, that's a really good place to look for a limitation of a mental model, of a belief system. Why am I thinking that it's either this or that? And suddenly I realized by looking at it, by reflecting, by pausing, that I am creating tremendous unnecessary suffering for my life in all areas. I was suffering everywhere because I developed such a comfort zone to it to the point that it became like overwhelming. That, okay,
Mm,
you know what? My edge is actually fun. And so what I would start doing is doing more light things, fun things, playful things. I remember I was at a retreat where they would do like very silly hula hoops and dancing, and I'd rather do 100 burpees in the corner than that, but I was like, this is your discomfort, so go play on that edge. That was my right hard thing, was light, was ease, was fun, instead of the hard that I'd gotten comfortable with.
True. And I think so many of us program hard into our lives
Yeah.
because we believe that entrepreneurship is hard. So I've just got
Yeah.
to do it the hard way. And I have a friend, her name's Susan Joyce Proctor. She's been on the podcast and she teaches Ayurveda beautifully. Like she's a good friend 'cause I love how she teaches Ayurveda as well. And she said to me, how about there's an easy button? Could there be an easy button? Could it be that instead of Shivani working so hard all the time in
Yeah.
every way for
Yeah.
everything to be perfect, could there instead be an easy button? Could you just hit that easy button? She's like, imagine the easy buttons on yourself. And so sometimes I laugh because things can be easy.
Yeah.
Couldn't you hit the easy button? But it oftentimes feels like it's not going to serve you when it comes to your really big goals. And this is one of those years. My company's been a decade old, caused a lot of reflection. And I realized, I've wanted for 10 years to pause and make the house feel like a home and make it feel beautiful. And I never made the space for it. And all of a sudden the year is shifting and moving and I'm making the space. Because I think if we don't force ourselves to stop and, like you said, really reflect on what matters the most, it's almost easier. It's easier for me to be a workaholic like my parents. I saw a model for working so hard. And if you work that hard, what you will have is financial security for your children.
Yeah.
What you'll have is financial security for everyone you love. Like you'll always be able to protect everybody.
Yeah.
And that element or that core mantra and value system was so ingrained in me that the opposite is actually hard. It's hard to make space for those I love. It's hard to be present to those I love.
Yeah.
And so this summer, I was like, what is the point of building a really cool business and impacting the entire planet if what's left here at home is your kids are leaving in 3 years? That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And what if they only love daddy because daddy makes time for them and you're too busy working?
Yeah.
What was the point of the whole experience? And so that's what really caused huge shifts in me this summer. I was like, that's it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I am here to impact, but I'm also here to serve at home and enjoy home and be part of this home and make it magical for all of us. Like we're all important here, not just them, me, and not just my business, but all of us.
Yeah.
And so how do you coach people who are how have you really navigated this yourself actually when people are so one track? Because that happens a lot in entrepreneurship right now. You're just like on the track or even the business you're in, speaking, writing a book. I'm in that business too.
Yeah.
How do you make the space that you need? And how do you deal with the dichotomy? Because like you said, it's almost easier to say, I'm just going to go do the hardest things on earth.
Yeah.
That's easier to me than holding space, like the yin yoga, the chill part compared to the hard.
Because we can all get, to your point, we all get comfortable even in a hard thing. Like building business is still hard, but it becomes our comfort zone of hard. Even when I was writing Fearvana, I would have procrastinated by running a marathon. Running a marathon was still hard, but it was like my zone of hard that I loved, So that's what I would have people do is usually it's just, it doesn't take that much time of self-honesty to really look and be like, oh yeah, it's just, we do everything we can to distract ourselves from ourselves. So if you just pause for a little bit, it'll hit you where the gaps are. And sometimes when I work with people, it's just asking a few questions. Like, what do you really want out of life? What do you want your life to look like? Imagine yourself dying. And so it's not so much like live every day as if it's your last. It's like literally imagine yourself dying. Visualize yourself on your deathbed, looking back at your life from that lens. I think about this all the time. Like being present to your own mortality is one of the most powerful mental weapons to amplify your intensity of how you live your life. Like when I die, would I look back on my life and say, I lived aligned with who I want to be? And a good way to even think about that is I'll have people write down like your obituary, your eulogy, even what are the words you want on your tombstone. Mine are, he wandered the world with human heart to doctor the sick with human soul. That's a quote that I kind of borrowed from Carl Jung, so it's not my own words, but that becomes my North Star. Once you have the North Star, then now you can say, am I oriented towards that? Okay, is this getting me there? I don't think most people in my work don't have any clarity on that ultimate North Star. But if you start there, now you can work backwards from there. Okay, hey, then you can say, like, again, you make the call. I want to do business at the cost of everything else. And cool if that's what you decide. But I think, again, any time you even pause to ask the question, and doing that for myself and or for somebody else, it becomes clear fairly quickly that, hey, this is not what I really want. Okay, once we're clear, then we can say, all right, now I got to do it. And it's going to be hard. The nature of the hard thing is you can't take away that. What we can do is reduce and eliminate the unnecessary suffering, because there is a distinction. There is suffering and there is unnecessary suffering. But first step is getting clear on what we actually want, looking at where the edges that you're avoiding, that you're escaping. Usually, if you're doing something to escape, that's a very clear sign. And again,
Sure.
even like an hour of stillness with yourself will get you clear. Like, you'll see fitness people who it becomes very clear that they're using the gym only to escape their demons, right? And again, gym is positive. It's better than drinking and binge watching Netflix or whatever. But if it's an
Sure.
escape, is it really serving you?
Hi, I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I created Fusionary Formulas because I believe everyone deserves a natural way to support their body's health. If you struggle with joint discomfort or stiffness, our turmeric gold delivers powerful curcumin in a form your body can truly absorb. It's science-backed with the highest quality ingredients and designed to support your body's natural inflammatory response. Take the next step in your health and wellness journey today. Visit fusionaryformulas.com and use code FusionaryHealth for 15% off. Fusionary Formulas, ancient wisdom, modern science, maximum impact. It's so interesting. I mean, nowadays, how often do we pause and sit with ourselves?
Yeah.
We're addicted to our iPhones. We're addicted to social media. We're addicted to content, whether it's through YouTube or Netflix. And if you take a step back, I mean, a lot of what I teach from Ayurveda is how to be healthy. But recently someone asked me, what does Ayurveda teach about spirituality? And I said, hold on, I'm obviously not doing a good job here, because the whole point of Ayurveda is to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment so you can achieve that highest level of joy and your highest level of vibration, which, guess what, connects to your spiritual being and body and self and your auric field. And I said, I don't teach spirituality. I don't consider myself a spiritual teacher, but I am trying to get you there through body, through mind, through your mental health, emotional health, to have such peace that you can access that. But what I can't do is I can't pry everyone's iPhones out of their hands. I have to pry my own iPhone out of my own hand half the time and say, stop it. Like, that's it. Make some space. So my way of making space is through music. I'll just play music. I'll say, that's it. You're getting off Facebook. It's time for you to chill and just have some white noise.
Just be
exactly. You can process and reflect.
Exactly.
Because otherwise we're not giving ourselves any space. And thus the poor body is a slave to the mind, which is a slave to our emotions. And we're just going. But like you said, we're really distracting, probably numbing,
constantly.
escaping, doing all these things as opposed to just tuning in. What do you really want?
I think it's the greatest fear is stillness. There's a French philosopher who said, all of humanity's problem stems from man's inability to sit by himself in a room alone. And I don't think it's a fear. If you ask somebody, what are you scared of? Almost nobody's going to say stillness. But if you look at behaviors and how people live, it's the greatest fear. And if there is one thing, like when people come to me, okay, what's the one thing you recommend people do after this, or a podcast or whatever, a speech or whatever, the number one thing for universal, like almost universal. There's very few who have confronted stillness at a level they're now comfortable with it, but almost universal sort of solution would be go lock yourself in a dark closet for an hour. Start in 10 minutes. I've done these 17-day darkness retreats, as you know. I had one kid who was so inspired by it, he literally locked himself in a dark closet for an hour. Just sit with yourself. And I guarantee you'll open doors within that you have not opened before. And what comes out of those doors will be answers to questions that you didn't even know you had. And that's how you create, to your point, that alignment, mind, body, spirit, and mission.
What a simple practice that's probably excruciating for so many. So many people. I mean, we have a monkey mind that wants to just go. We have an intellect on top of it that has all of its own runnings. I'm going to try this, Akshay, but I have
Awesome.
a feeling it's not going to be easy for me.
It's not gonna
I've
be easy.
always,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Vipassana retreats where you
Yeah.
go for like
Yeah.
7 days and no one talks to you, but there you're still in community, you're still
Yeah.
eating. And so there's still a lot of the mind communicating and participating there. But I'm so curious what just an hour of silence would mean when we are oftentimes running our lives so overstimulated.
Yeah. Yeah. And even
Wow.
start with 10 minutes if that's like the point is it should be uncomfortable. Like if 10 minutes is comfortable, then go a little in more, push to
Yeah.
the point that it's uncomfortable. And again, that's the very nature. It won't be easy, but
Yeah.
that's where that growth happens. That's where you explore something on an edge that you haven't gone to before.
Sure. Going back one step, you were talking about ultimate North Stars. And I've had many coaches who I've worked with because I've always wanted to do a TED talk and different things. And they're always like, write out your values. And always, in my case, I always wanted to get married, have kids, have a home, and have a business I
Mm,
love. I always wanted to make sure my family was healthy. I'm part of a really beautiful in-law family, so they are also my family, and I always want everyone safe and healthy there and
yeah.
all those things. And it's interesting because this week I'm trying to finish the Shivani House Purge 2025 that I'm like fully in the mud with it.
Yeah.
It's been 6 weeks now of purging thousands of pounds of like stuff and
Mm,
shelving. And I
mm,
mean, biggest clean out of my life, probably because for 5 years I've worked so hard. I didn't touch the garage and all the
yeah.
closets. I was like, whatever, will live as is.
Yeah.
When I'm successful, I'll figure that out. And so this year, now that we are doing better, I was like, that's it. We're cleaning.
Getting into it.
What I
Yeah.
found was tons and tons of memory boxes full of photos,
Mm,
letters,
mm,
art from my kids, Valentine's Day cards from my kids, letters from me to them. I mean, it's been magical going through those boxes. And it was such a profound reminder. It's like God led me to the gold that was actually at the bottom of all that rubble that I was digging through. And I realized, wow, what am I working for? Like, I am actually working so hard. And a lot of what I do is I run out of here. I am at conferences and I travel and I speak and all those things that look so cool to the outside.
mm,
But on the inside, everything I wanted, I already have.
mm,
So
mm, mm.
it almost took away that like desperate seeking for outside all of
Yeah.
a sudden. And I was like, wait a minute. If you already have what you want, and you already get to do yoga in your favorite yoga studio on earth. You already work out at the place you love most. And I already have food like set in this house, organic, fresh, and like local and everything I want. What is it that you're actually seeking? Like, what is left? And I usually have to find a goal that I put as a finish line in front of me so that I will race towards the goal.
Yeah.
And so in your life, you just went through the biggest thing. You chose to cross Antarctica with a sled. And I'd love for you to share the story of what led you to get there, because I think it is important for each of us to either, we have to know our Dharma, our life purpose that we are working towards in this lifetime. What is our destiny or our path?
Yeah.
And or let's say you're in it. I own Fusionary and I know that it's my destiny to get to heal the world with turmeric and Ayurveda. Like, I'm so clear.
Love it.
But how do you kind of set what is going to be your next edge that you're
Yeah.
going to put in front of yourself to inspire yourself to go at it full
Yeah.
force?
Love it. Love it. There's some really cool, love what some of the things you shared. I'll get into after I answer the question about Antarctica. So I was devoting 4 years to this mission. It had never been attempted before, let alone completed, never even been attempted. Many adventurers consider to be impossible. What I was attempting to do was to do the world's first coast to coast ski crossing of Antarctica. So dragging a 420-pound sled for 1,700 miles. And I ended up doing 500 miles for 60 days completely alone, pushed the body to the brink of death, got diverticulitis, which is infection in the colon that if left untreated can burst and kill you, which is what happened to an adventure 8 years ago. But the thing that drew me to it was not like it was literally pushing the very edge of the human potential and doing something that was considered impossible. I could have done a million other expeditions in Antarctica if I wanted just that. But I wanted to go to a new edge that had never been achieved in the human condition, not even just my own, to open such extreme doors, to battle the biggest dragon I could find in order to unearth the greatest treasure I could find. Right? You have to battle a dragon to find the treasure, whatever the dragon, whatever the treasure that we're all facing. And so I wanted to unearth the greatest treasures of the human soul. For me, it was a very spiritual journey. out there on that edge of solitude, the edge of suffering. I mean, I was geographically the most isolated life form on the entire planet for 60 of those days, dragging that sled uphill through soft snow, pushing the body to such brinks. It allowed me to go so deep within to find new answers. And one of the key learnings that has come through is kind of what you were saying. And now I'm sharing this in my book, and it's become a thing for me is if this thing that we go do these hard things, building this business, writing this book, and we realize that it brings us back within. Why do anything, right? Why
Yeah.
do anything? Could you just be here? And there's this kind of inherent paradox that exists there, that we go without to find something within, but it is the going without that can actually help us access within in a way that we could not without all that work. And eventually we get to the point that we realize there's this great quote from Zen Buddhism, that before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So the point is, and I'm not saying I've mastered all of this now, but it's been the biggest realization since Antarctica. You can still do these things. Like I will still do these voyages out on the edge, but there comes a time where you realize you're doing it not as proof, but as preference. You're
Mhm.
not doing it to earn your worth or whatever. You're doing it as an expression of who you are. And it's a subtle inner distinction that has become more clear to me, that I would say even Antarctica, there was a bit of proving, not only, not, and I don't even to anybody else. At this point, it was more proving to myself. But through it, it started to shift this dynamic that you can still do the same. It's kind of like the right heart becomes even more nuanced, right? The right heart becomes even more microscopic in its shifts as to what drives you there. And so you can still build your business, speak, do all the things you do, but you're doing it now as an expression, not as an earning, right? Preference, not proof. And that's the shift that's been happening for me. Is now I'm focused on writing the next book. My next heart is the book, is building the brand, building the business. My next edge is in business. I've built a business before, but it's been very much, how can I make money to do cool things? So I
Sure.
wouldn't say it was like a systematic, well-structured business. I did what I had to do to get the money to do the cool things that I've been blessed to do. But now it's like, let's build it in a structured way, and I'm blessed with great people around me to help and support, as with everything. And I'll still have all these edges. Like just few weeks ago, I did 24 hours on a stair climber. So I still love love doing these physical pursuits that push me, but more and more it's becoming more of an expression rather than an earning. Like a desire to see, a curiosity rather than a proof. And that's been a very cool, subtle shift.
I love that. I think we each have those things that excite us. For
Yeah.
me, I've always wanted to be a race car driver, and I
Mm,
love driving beautiful, fun cars. It's a
yeah.
thing to me. And so there are always new edges that we can unlock. Like I
Yeah.
did one driving experience in Atlanta, but everyone tells me I need to go to Alabama and have another driving experience. Or I put on my list for next year, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I was
Awesome.
like, that's it. That would be
Yeah.
so cool. And I'll
Yeah.
start training for it. It'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And then I thought, no, you have a book coming out. Like your job is only to do that. You can't add on that pile. But after speaking to you today, I'm like, why not? Like, why can't we make
Mm.
space for both? What is the big deal? We can have our edges that we unlock in our work while also having those personal ones that are from
Yeah.
within that we know we want to do. I've never climbed a mountain. I'm not a hiker. I
Yeah.
probably have like bad feet for this idea, but I want to do it. It's in my heart to do it. And when I looked at my husband and told him, he's 7 years older than me, he's like, Shivani, if we're going to do that, let's do it soon. Right. I'm younger, so I just think like whatever. And he's
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Let's not wait till I'm 60 if that's going to go on to the
Yeah.
goals list that you've got in your mind. But it's just interesting how we oftentimes will reach for like, oh, what's comfortable, what's doable, what's attainable, what's possible, as opposed to really putting what you're talking about here, like proof, not preference. Like, what are
Yeah.
those things really within you that your heart says you want to do most? And
Yeah.
how do you make room for those two, as opposed to just letting the list
Yeah.
and the responsibilities, in a sense, constantly box you in from doing those things?
Yeah, it's kind of think of life from a both and mindset instead of an either or. We brought
Yeah.
this up earlier, right? Like that's a limitation of a mental model. And look, I'm not saying don't We all know the value of focusing intensely on a craft. But when you at least open up the question, you start asking, like I myself thought, I can't have a relationship and do these intense things. Here I am, right? I, in fact, met and married my wife while I was training for Antarctica. And so in the last year of our life together, we were traveling to Greenland, to Alaska, Iceland, all of these things. So if you start asking the question, you can at least start expanding how you think about things, and that's what the value of setting an edge of possible goal is. Because almost like all of us, you, me, everyone, we don't know what we don't know. So when we set a goal, we set it from the limited lens of reality that shapes this current version of ourself. But if you set something impossible that to this version of you feels impossible, it will send you into places that this version of you cannot fathom. And that's the value. So you first set this impossible paradigm that will force you to expand how you think. It will change how you view reality, right? And through that, now you start as you bring that both and mindset. How can I do this and this instead of this? And you might say, okay, hey, right now, especially right now as I'm writing my book, I'm not going to go do an expedition across Antarctica tomorrow. Well, like that, so you operate within some reason, obviously, but it does expand your thinking to find answers that you couldn't find before. And
Sure.
that's the value. Like it pushes you into a reality that will make you rise to the new constraints of that reality. Like when training for Antarctica, I completed an exercise that's so hard called the Nordic curls. I did 21. And Men's Health wrote an article about a UFC fighter when he did 2. That's how hard this exercise is. I pushed to insane levels of endurance where I could sustain a heart rate of 170 beats per minute while staying in an aerobic state. To give you context, most elite endurance athletes have an aerobic threshold, is what it's called, of 160. I raised $1.1 million from scratch. I met and married my wife. I prepared nutrition, logistics, route of an expedition that had never been attempted before, all in a year and a half leading up to the expedition. And it's not because I'm special. That's the very key point I want to make, is I thrust myself into a reality that demanded more from me. And we can rise to that level of that reality when we commit to it. That's the point.
It's true. We can. And so many of us don't think we can, whether it's our age, whether it's, where we're at physically, where we at our responsibility wise in our lives. I do that. A lot of times I'll say, I'm going to be that. I will have that. I will build that. For the book, I was setting goals. For the company, I was
Yeah.
setting goals. For my kids, I have goals, but I try not to force them into my dreams for them.
Yeah, I got
I'm
you.
like, Anya, my daughter Anya's an environmentalist. I'm like, Anya, you could be the next, who's that girl who's an environmentalist globally? Like you could be a true
Yeah.
change maker. Like the entire planet could shift because of you. And then finally I was like, I should stop putting so much pressure on her. If I want to shift the planet, I'll do it myself. I'm not
Yeah,
going to put it
got
on
you.
a kid. But yeah, it's interesting how we can talk ourselves out of that a lot of times. Like for me, for the book, I had a really big goal, and then I was like, well, you know what? You haven't done the work. That's too much work. It's probably not going to happen. Maybe future books, like just don't even dream about it. So how do you talk to people who are always talking themselves out of their edge?
I always like to. I encourage people to ignore without putting it in the way that I put it
Ignore
sometimes.
that voice.
Like ignore the whole paradigm around overcome your limiting beliefs. Like I like to say, fuck your limiting beliefs. That's what I literally say,
Sure.
because there's so much focus on limiting beliefs. But here's the thing: if you start to work on your limiting beliefs, it develops an attachment to the thought as real.
Sure.
Instead, it's about realizing that these thoughts are not real. So instead, you got to be like a little bit of a bull in a china shop. Go play
Sure.
on an edge. Do something you've never done before in a small way, right?
Mhm.
Like, and you can do this all the time. I mean, and look, when you do this, you're going to get a little hurt. I've lost fingers. I've gotten hypothermia. I've gotten heat exhaustion. I've gotten frostbite. So I'm not saying you'll get that, so not to
Yeah.
scare anybody. But the point is, you're going to get, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, you're going to get a little hurt. But that's the only way you can evolve, because this version of you is trapped again, right? In order to grow, you have to fail. In order to succeed, you have to fail. In order to do something to fail, you're going to have to do something that this version of you cannot possibly fathom. So you're going to have to go do something irrational that's beyond your current beliefs, and then you push and say, hey, I didn't die. Got it. Now I can push a little further. Got it. Now I can push a little further. So I really operate from the fundamental paradigm and this bias towards action. Like, be a bull in a china shop, go run into some glass, metaphorically speaking, not
Yeah.
literally, but get a little hurt, and then you're gonna see. Then from there you cultivate belief. Like, the further you are along on path of mastery at both internally and whatever your craft is, the more belief matters. If you are starting out on the journey, and look, we're all somewhere, so it's not, don't beat yourself up if you're hearing this. I was there too. Ignore your beliefs. Don't worry about believing it. Just leap in action, go to war with yourself. Even today, like when I still have my, like working on the business, I'll have those thoughts. I'm not saying I'm perfect at, like, there's thoughts, show up like you said, I don't know if I can do this and all that, and be like, cool, I don't have to listen to that belief. You can do whatever you want. Like I literally have like this schizophrenic dialogue with myself, right? That you can do what you want. I'm going to take action anyway in the face of irrational action, that there's no evidence to justify this, right? At least in this lens. But now in my life, I have enough evidence to justify I can do crazy things and push through. I mean, doctors told me boot camp would kill me. I literally have physical limitations that should not make me an endurance athlete, And here I am. So there's enough evidence at this point to say that I can strive for the impossible. But even in a concrete example, like when I got the Dalai Lama to endorse my first book, Fearvana, I had a thought. No way. Who am I? I didn't have a brand. I didn't have a platform. Nobody knew my name. I was on first book, unknown. And then I almost did reach out to him because I was like, there's no way. And then I was like, what if I just try? And he says no. I'm exactly where I'm at anyway. Why not try? And he ended up writing the foreword from my book, not just an endorsement. So the more you do these things, the more you stack evidence, and then the less you learn to listen to your thoughts and just leap into war with yourself anyway.
True. I do it all the time. It's honestly a training. Just like you go to the gym and you train to lift, I have that same thing where I'm like, ask anyways. I just asked someone to write the foreword to my book, and she could say no. Yeah. But look, if you don't ask, if you don't push, if you don't beg, how will you ever know? Exactly. And if it's a no, it's a no. The person who I wanted a forward from, who I met in person, was like, yes. And then his team emailed back and said, no, he's got no time. And it felt like a slap in the face. And then I was like, well, you know what? That's okay. Who's next? You can't, you can't linger on these things. You have to move forward. And recently, Ben Hardy was on a call with one of the masterminds you and I were both in, and he talked about his new book, The Science of Scaling. I listened to it. I had my COO in my company listen to it. We scheduled a call with him. And I loved that message, similar to what you're saying, where he said, set an impossible goal, then set an impossible timeline, and then raise the floor was the third piece of that. Like take out all the noise and distraction in your life. That one I personally find really hard, but I understand what he's saying. You have to like raise the bar and not do all the BS stuff that distracts you from pursuing that impossible goal. And then really, if you're going at the impossible goal headlong, you will inevitably, like you just said, unlock these edges, and you might not reach it, but you will get so much closer than if you hadn't gone for the impossible goal. But where I find a struggle with that topic is sometimes you drive your team nuts. I drive my team nuts. Sometimes you drive yourself nuts because you become so single-minded, you really do push everything out of your life. So then how do you navigate that? How do you balance your worlds?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is where, like, it can be as simple as a little pause at the end of the day to assess. It sounds simplistic, but this comes back to the stretch and reflect part, right? Like I love I thrive on the mindset of this obsessive pursuit, one single mind. I'm going to commit my reality to it. But then you pause. Hey, okay, it's date night with the wife, right? And this comes back to a practice of presence. Like, can I train my brain to be fully in this moment now? Because right now, so for example, right, I'm working on this book. I'm doing a lot of public speaking. So we're working. I also have coaching clients. I love my physical pursuits. I'm married. So there's many different of these little moving needle parts that, there is an overarching theme to all of them for sure, but there's these many different moving parts. The key is building systems and structures around it. So I'm not a slave to the chaotic monkey mind. So if I set, for example, it's as simple as like the next 5 hours, I'm going to work on just my book and nothing else, like in the zone. I'm locking my door. Don't come in. Don't disturb, like nothing. Right. And then as soon as I move to date night or whatever now, and it doesn't mean you can't talk about your business. I think you know this, whereas entrepreneurs, we're always talking about the things we love, and that's okay. I think that's nonsense to say separate work and like you could talk about it, but in the key is like, I'm not writing it. I'm not like, hey, I'm not going to be here with you right now. Hey, like my wife and I will always talk about our books as we're back and forth sharing ideas, but you're choosing to be in this moment now. And it's as simple as, like, I use mantras a lot. Okay, be here now. Be here now. Got it. Like, okay, my mind's wandering. I'm going to bring it back. Be here now. Before we got on this call, I was working on stuff. It's very easy to just get in the zone of that. Got it. But it's literally now a 2-minute shift, pause, little breath. this is where I'm at now, and this is where I will be for
Mm.
wherever, however long time is a construct. What I mean by that is 5 minutes can feel like an hour can feel like 5 minutes. We all know that dynamic. But so you don't, it's not even so much of that. It's like for this, however long this is, there's only one place I am. Right. And so it's training this muscle, and that is as simple as bringing your awareness to your breath or one of the five senses. I'm going to focus on even how my hands feel in this moment, whatever it may be. In this moment, this is where I'm at. And when my mind wanders, bring it back. And the more, like anything, the more you train it, the better you become at it. So to summarize that answer, it's set up structures and then train your brain in presence. And that's how you can navigate doing what seems like a million things at once. I mean, even a business has so many moving parts, right? But you have to kind of navigate that. And that's mastery of the presence in each moment.
Absolutely. I teach that as a habit called tea time is me time because I
Mm,
love tea. I design teas and make teas, but also tea to me is like this moment. It's a ritual. It's
yeah.
warm. It's
Yeah. I
comforting,
love that.
and it makes you pause. I can't chug a
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
You can
It's
chug
hard.
your protein shake. You can't chug a
Exactly.
cup of tea. So it's
Exactly.
like quite a moment to drop into parasympathetic,
I love
take a
that.
second, and reflect. And so
I
I
love
pause
that.
and reflect 5 times a day. It's my
I
anchor
love
point.
that.
7
I
a.m.,
love
10
that.
a.m., right after lunch, I have a tea,
Yeah.
afternoon high tea, evening tea, and then bedtime tea. So that's my rhythm. And I'm constantly tuning in and I'm like, what do you need right now? How are
Yeah.
things going? What
Yeah.
have you forgotten that's important? What needs to
Yeah.
change? Are you going to get to eat dinner today the way you've designed today? And a lot of
Yeah.
times I'm like, oh gosh, I really structured today like a crazy.
Yeah.
How am I going to build in more peace? Where do I
Yeah.
build in quiet for me?
Yeah.
And so that practice of really building presence to yourself and
Yeah.
to stillness is important. And some of us, I use tea time as like the security blanket to make sure I do it, because
Yeah.
otherwise it could be just as easy that you're running, 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 running. You're always connected to everyone else, but you're
Yeah.
disconnected from self.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that ritual so much. It's
Yeah.
so valuable. One of my many mantras is courage will get you to the door, presence will carry you through it. So it's when we do these hard things, business, whatever, it's going to take courage to get there. But the ultimately what it boils down to, if you don't do it in the moment of doing it, is just lack of presence. Your mind will take you a million places. I'm gonna
True.
just gonna be here. If I'm just here, that's how, I mean, in Antarctica, I had to get out of the tent every day through excruciatingly hard conditions. Every day my muscles were in pain. Every single day. And there were days where I would wake up and see new snow on the ground. New snow meant those two sleds would sink literally every few steps. The thing that got me out, if I'm looking outside of this and I'm thinking about having to do this for 9 hours, excuse me, I'm not going to get out the tent. But the
Sure.
mind is creating a reality that's not real here, right? The only thing that's real here is the now. All right, be here now. Make my world small. So courage will get you to the door. Presence will carry you through.
I love that. I think you're right. So many times our mind will just unconvince us on whatever we're trying to
Exactly.
do. And I find that's true even more when something's really important to you. So in my case, I've owned the same company for 10 years. The
Yeah.
formulas are actually the same 10 years in because they work so
'Cause they
well.
work.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
anytime I change something, people get mad. I tried changing the main formula one year and the entire database screamed at me. And I was like, okay, fine, guys, we will leave the primary
Yeah.
two products the same. And then I'll go innovate on the other side of the
Yeah.
business on
Yeah.
gummies and teas. But writing a book to me is a huge deal.
Yeah.
I always dreamt that I would write a real book with a real publisher
That's awesome.
and it would change the world. I think we sometimes set dreams and goals and we have no idea what's involved in the work. And so I'm in that moment. Hay House is an amazing publisher, but damn, is there a lot of steps and work and process involved in doing this outside of self-publishing? Self-publishing, which I
Yeah.
have done, was easy. This
Yeah.
is like editors and
Yeah.
citations, and it's just been a journey.
Yeah.
But what I find is I have the highest level of resistance in this one thing that I'm doing this year because
Mm,
it actually matters to me most. It's the most
mm,
personal thing to finally put this book out there. And so I just laugh at myself. I'm like, okay, it's the book, so you're avoiding it. You have to do it. Literally, my team is dragging me through sharing the book with the world. And they're
yeah.
like, what is wrong with you? You wanted this thing forever. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the thing. When something matters to you most, you can have the courage to do it. But that last, like, couple feet of the finish line can sometimes be the
It's just scary.
hardest
It's hard. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
cross. Like, I can do anything till 90%. I'm a workhorse for 90%. And
Yeah.
that lets 10%. I actually need my team there to say, hey, you were done. Come on, let's just click send on the final pieces.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate that for yourself? And that's my last question, because I know we're almost about to hit an hour
No, it's all
together.
good. I love the question. So good. I think, I think that's where like the fear shows up, especially in the creative process. Now it's out there in the world. So, it's when you're in it, it's not there yet. But when it becomes very real, that putting it out in the world, then there's that fear, at least speaking for myself, I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but, oh, what if people think it's garbage? What if it sucks? What if I get a 1-star review? Right. And just being with that fear as okay. Got it. This is okay. This is okay to have that. But recognizing also that fear is what shows how much you care. If you didn't care about this book, you wouldn't have that, right? But you want this to make an impact. You gave your heart and your soul into it. So it's just normalizing it and then like taking the action in the face of it. There's nothing I or anybody else can say to make it go away. Because one of my, again, you heard me say mantras a lot. One of my absolute favorites is the only way out is through. The only way out is through. There is no escaping the suck, the struggle, the fear, the whatever the thing may be, but the only way out is through. And when you get through, you always see, you have enough evidence already to show that when you push through, whether it be in your business, your family, the rewards are more than worth it, right? So you've stacked up enough evidence, as I have as well, but someone newer along the path, just start building that evidence, and then you'll see, oh yeah, it's still gonna suck. My next book, I'm still going through it, even as I'm writing it. It's still going to go through on the next book and the next book and the next book on the next expedition, whatever the thing we do. It doesn't get easier, but we get stronger in our ability to handle it. It's like you go to the gym. First time you can lift 10 pounds, then 20. Yeah, right. You get stronger to lift more muscle, to lift more weight, but the weight feels just as hard, right? Even whether it's 10 pounds or 20, just depending on where you are on your strength level. So you just get stronger. That's the key. And you have that muscle and you keep training it. It never goes away, the need to have that muscle of courage.
I love that. What a fun podcast we got to do together today. This has been
Yeah, this is
amazing.
awesome.
Thank you for coming
Thank
on
you.
today.
Thank you
I
for
even
having
took
me.
notes. I rarely sit in a podcast and take notes, but this happened when you
Oh, I'm
spoke
honored.
at the conference as well. I'm like, what's your edge? And, what are the right hard things? It's a powerful question to ask yourself.
Mm,
Like, what are the right hard things for myself in this year or in the coming year that I
yeah,
should start working towards? Like,
yeah,
once I said Kilimanjaro, I started doing the Stairmaster. I was like, hey, you're
love
going
it.
to climb a mountain. You better start now.
That's
That's
awesome.
a 30 minutes a day, like
Yeah,
at least start preparing the body for this
yeah,
idea. And then really kind of setting some core mantras for ourselves that
yeah.
are the ones we say to ourselves each and every day. And then you
It's
talked about an ultimate North Star or a eulogy. I mean, I've
mhm,
done that exercise of writing a eulogy, and
mm,
it's a very powerful exercise.
yeah,
It does help you find that North Star in your life and say, what is it that I'm doing here? Like at this point of my evolution, what is it
yeah,
that I'm seeking?
yeah.
And then I love that you said battle the dragon to find the treasure. I think it's so true that whether that dragon is an internal dragon or the external dragons
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
And then finally the refinement is not for proof but for preference.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank
So glad
you.
that was value. Absolutely.
All of it was of value. So thank
Such a
you.
pleasure.
So what are your next frontiers that you're dreaming about after this book is out there? Like what is the next adventure or the next
Adventure.
challenge or thing you're working towards?
There's some dreams to maybe go back to Antarctica, but I don't know. We'll cross that. We'll see. I do want to get back into cave diving, at least in terms of this is again in the adventure bucket. But
Yeah.
my wife and I have talked about kids. That scares me more than Antarctica does. So, so that might be the the adventure in the down the road. But we've started exploring some of those options for the next. The books we will be the next focus for the rest of this year to get that done in the next 6 months, and you know how
Yeah.
it is. So really in the cave there.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah.
after that, then we'll look at okay. I'll always have the outdoor adventure thing. That's a very much the thing that makes me come alive. So
Yeah.
still exploring what all that may be.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, I have loved having you on the podcast today.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Shivani.
much. Is there
Thank
any
you.
final message that you have for our audience today before I let you go?
Final message: be with whatever shows up within. Don't judge it. Don't beat yourself up for it. And then use it. Use it as an access point to explore your edge. I'll leave you with this one line, another mantra that I haven't said before in this podcast, but one of my favorites. Acceptance of isness is the key to freedom from all unnecessary suffering.
Mm.
Say that again. Acceptance of isness is the key to freedom from all unnecessary suffering. Whatever is going on, your fears, your doubts, all the things we've talked about, be with it. Don't judge it. Don't resist it. Don't fight it. Be with it. That's how you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. And you can use whatever shows up as an access point to explore your next edge.
Mm. Love it. Thank you. And where can
Mhm.
everyone find you?
Fearvana, Fearvana. I'm on Fearvana on Instagram, fearvana.com. The book Fearvana is on Amazon and paperback Kindle Audible as well.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shivani.
everyone, for listening. I hope you guys took notes. There was so much in there. I have my notes here. And gosh, thank you for joining us today. And I think it's so powerful. Everything you shared today applies to health, applies to our personal life, our business life, all aspects of life. For anyone who has any questions or wants to look further into this podcast, the Fusionary Health Podcast, you can visit my website at shivanigupta.com. And I'll see you guys next week on the next episode. See you soon. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health Podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.